All the waiters ran from the unbearable rich man until the new girl faced the truth. No one stayed long at the Skyline penthouse. Every waiter ran. They bolted out the glass doors, sweat cold on their backs, haunted by the man no one dared to name. The rumors? Darker than the city at midnight. The rich tycoon who owned the place didn't just demand perfection. He crushed spirits, tore down confidence, and left fear hanging heavy like fog over the glittering skyline. And Emma? Tonight, Emma was the new girl walking straight into that storm. The doors slid open with a hiss. The gleaming floor stretched beneath her polished shoes, the walls thick with silence. Not the normal kind, but the kind that squeezes your throat. Tight, she spotted the other staff, eyes darting away, whispers fading behind clenched teeth. The air was cooler than outside, but the tension made her skin itch. Emma's hands trembled a bit as she pressed the tray against her hip. She knew this wasn't some ordinary first night. Something twisted shadowed this place, smothering even the sparkling chandeliers. The windows framed the city like a jewel box, but no one smiled. No one dared. The waiters glanced nervously toward the private dining room where the man slithered through orders like a snake. Stories flowed in fragments. A shattered glass thrown in rage. A server's sudden nervous breakdown. The sobbing chef caught between fury and fear. Every whisper carried the weight of misery. He's like a storm you'll never outrun, one kitchen hand muttered. The guests were mere actors in his twisted play, and anyone caught in the spotlight could crack. Emma's heart hammered loud inside her chest as she moved through the marble halls. Her own past pressed against her ribs. Memories she pushed deep beneath layers of resolve. She was no stranger to hardship, but this was a different beast. The pressure gnawed at her. The shadows inside the place dark enough to swallow hope whole. Then she overheard it. Low voices behind a heavy oak door. Two managers, voices barely above a hiss. Something about a family secret. The scandal that no one dares to speak of. The lies that built an empire soaked in blood. The rich man's cruelty wasn't just power. It was poison leaking from his past, threatening to rot the foundation beneath every shining plate and crystal glass. Emma's breath caught. The silence shattered when a distant crash echoed through the kitchen. Heads snapped toward the noise, and a ripple of panic swept the room. The moment stretched thin. Every heartbeat screamed, a challenge. Should she run like all the others, hide in the shadows, or step into the fire? A raw, wild spark flickered inside Emma. It was reckless hope, a stubborn flame daring to burn brighter than fear. She steadied her hands, swallowed the tightness in her throat, and made her move toward the dark heart of the penthouse. But just as she readied herself to face the nightmare concealed behind polished veneer, chaos exploded, an unthinkable event turning the glittering night into a battlefield of rumors and suspicion. Now Emma stands at the edge of everything, escape or confrontation. The questions thicken. What lethal secrets still lurk beneath the shine? And how far will she go to drag the truth out into the light? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Emma took a deep breath, almost daring to step towards the chaos when, boom, the sudden crash echoed again. But this time, it wasn't just in the kitchen. It came from the private dining room, splitting the air like a thunderclap. Cries erupted, a sickening thud followed, and the restaurant froze. All eyes shot toward the door, hearts pounding. The murmurs began, swirling like a dangerous wind. What was that? Someone whispered, their voice quaking. The fear gripped everyone tightly. squeezing hope right out of the air. "Stay here," shouted one of the managers, rushing toward the sound. But Emma felt the wall of fear behind her, pushing her forward. If this was a confrontation with the rich man, she didn't want to be left out. She edged closer. Voices were rising now, anger spilling forth. Then the door burst open. There stood Daniel, one of the senior waiters, his face white as a ghost, eyes wide with horror. He's gone, just like that. The rich man. He's dead." Dead? The room erupted into chaos. Shock spread like wildfire. Emma swallowed hard, choking on the gravity of his words. What had happened? Who knocked him down? Someone yelled. Did we just take a hit from the inside? Daniel stepped back, shaking his head, caught in disbelief. Panic transformed into urgent whispers. A swirling storm of accusation and confusion wrapped around them all. "Call the police," yelled another manager, fumbling for his phone. But his hands trembled so much he dropped it. In that moment, Emma's entire world tilted. The man everyone feared was no more. But this wasn't just a stroke of luck. It was the beginning of a nightmare. "Guys, the door's locked," Daniel shouted, rushing back into the room. Everyone hesitated. Locking the doors? What for? The rich man was dead. Wasn't that what they wanted? But the fear still clung, a dark weight pressing down. Before Emma could piece together the uncertainty, another voice broke through the panic. "We can't leave. We're trapped here." It was a new voice, frantic and unsteady. No one had even thought of that. Were they trapped? The very air thickened with dread. Emma could feel the room shift around her, eyes darting nervously. And then she heard it, a whisper across the room, as if drawn from the depths of the darkness they were drowning in. It wasn't an accident. He was murdered. Gasps filled the air, panic washing over the crowd. The murder? Who could have done it? Suddenly, faces turned accusatory, filled with suspicion. Every waiter, every manager, began to look at each other like suspects in a sickening game. Trust shattered like fragile glass. Just when the tension reached its peak, the back door swung open. A shadow stepped in, and Emma's heart dropped. It was Mia, the head chef, her eyes wild, clutching a bloody knife. The blade dripped crimson, and a collective gasp escaped everyone's lips. "Don't be afraid," she said, her voice a low growl. He was a monster, and now he's gone. But the panic had already spread its claws into every heart there. Emma's mind raced. Who was Mia really? What had she done? Was she a savior, or another monster? With trembling hands, Emma realized she stood on the brink of something dark. The question echoed louder than any scream. What else lay hidden beneath the facade of that perfect skyline? The fire of adrenaline churned in her stomach. She stepped forward, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" she demanded. But Mia just stared, the truth swirling in her eyes. A promise or a threat. And just like that, everything shifted again. The night had transformed into something far more sinister, leaving Emma gasping, desperate for answers that might never come. What had she walked into? And what secrets awaited her in the shadows? Mia stood there, the bloody knife glinting ominously in the low light, her gaze fierce. The crowd stilled, faces pale as ghosts. Emma felt the weight of every eye boring into her, the air thick with fear, confusion, and a desperate thirst for answers. Before she could voice her panic, Mia took a shaky step forward. "Listen!" Mia's voice sliced through the silence, but nobody moved. "He was going to destroy us all. You don't understand. He had secrets, terrible secrets." "Secrets?" someone shouted from the back. A waiter whose name Emma could never remember. "Like how you got that knife?" The tension crackled and hearts raced. Emma searched Mia's face, looking for truth amidst the chaos. "Mia, wait, what happened?" she pressed, her voice a mix of concern and urgency. "Emma, you don't understand. He wasn't just a horrible boss. He was—" Thud! Another sound echoed from the depths of the penthouse, and the ground seemed to shake. All eyes darted toward the sound, a new wave of fear washing over the crowd. But when they looked back, the shock on Mia's face revealed a deeper truth than the chaos around them. He wasn't alone," she stammered.
When I came in, I saw someone else. A shadow. Someone who shouldn't have.
Been here. What do you mean? Emma asked, heart pounding in her chest. The knife trembled in Mia's grip, the weight of her revelation sinking into the room like a stone thrown into a lake, rippling and widening fear. Mia's breath hitched. I thought it was just us, but he was meeting someone, a secret rendezvous. There were whispers, and then I saw it, someone else in the shadows, pushing up against him. And then, her voice faltered. And then what? Emma pressed, unable to hold back. I saw them arguing. The name they were screaming, it was yours. The room erupted into chaos again. Emma felt the air rush out of her lungs. Me? Yes. They said you were here to expose him, that you knew everything. Thought it was a threat, but now, Mia faltered, stepping back, the knife dropping slightly, and the red drops splattered on the pristine floor. Emma's heart beat wildly. But I don't know anything. I'm just here for my first day. Maybe you don't, but someone does, Mia shouted, her voice rising over the panic. He was scared. He was willing to kill to keep it hidden, to keep you quiet. Before Emma could respond, the lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. The silence was deafening. Then a loud crash came from beyond the kitchen, a metal clang followed by a crash of dishes breaking against the marble floor. In the sliver of light that burst back to life, Emma saw shadows darting by. Figures moved in and out of sight, and then a shout rang out, pure terror. Everyone get out, it's not safe in here. Suddenly, the back door swung wide, revealing a tall figure. It wasn't just Mia who was drenched in blood. The newcomer wore it too, a grim expression plastered across their face. As the crowd gasped, the figure spoke. I tried to warn you all. Who are you? Emma gasped, stepping back instinctively. In a flash, recognition hit. It was Alex, a half-forgotten colleague she'd met in passing, someone who didn't belong here, yet had clearly been present in some dangerous game. Did you know this would happen? Emma shouted, her voice raw. I was trying to protect you, Alex snapped, frustration lacing their voice. But you're in, way over your head. The whole thing was set up, and you're the key. Emma felt the ground give way, her world built on shaky foundations. What do you mean? Set up how? Before Alex could answer, the lights flickered again, the air electric with a new kind of fear. The moment was stilled, hanging like a thread. Are any of us even safe here? Emma whispered. And with that, the tension in the room thickened, a palpable dread coiling tightly as others quietly began to back away, realizing they were playing parts in a much darker plot. What horrors had they stumbled into? Emma's heart raced. She had walked into something far more dangerous than a mere job. Whispers of blood and betrayal hung in the air, and she was caught in the middle, desperate for a way out. Who exactly was out to silence her? And who could she trust when shadows clung to every corner? The night felt endless, and all Emma knew was that she was just beginning to peel back the layers of a horrifying truth. Emma stood there, her mind racing, heart pounding like a drum in a desperate march. Every eye was on Mia, and every whisper hung heavy with accusations. The air felt electric, a storm brewing with the promise of chaos. Just as the tension wound tighter, Alex spoke, his voice slicing through the thick silence. Guys, we have to get out of here, he urged, glancing toward the door like a cornered animal. But there was something in his eyes, panic mixed with urgency, like he held the key to a locked door. Mia shouted back, You don't understand. We can't leave until we figure this out. This is about survival. Suddenly the lights flickered again, casting long shadows against the walls, and Emma's breath caught. Everything felt wrong, the shattering glass and the cries of panic echoing like ghosts. And then it happened, an unexpected sound, not from the outside, but right there in the room, a crack that splintered the air and sent everyone spinning. Get down, someone screamed, and confusion reigned. A metal door slammed open, and in stepped a man, tall, sharp features, and a confidence that cut through the panic. Emma's heart sank. She recognized him from the high-rises downtown. Gavin, the tycoon's business partner. The man who had been entwined in every whispered rumor about the rich man's darker dealings. "What the hell, Gavin?" Emma gasped, eyes wide. "You can't be here." But he wasn't looking at her. His gaze swept the room, barely registering the knife Mia held, the confusion around them, almost as if he owned every person in the room. "You need to leave, now," he ordered sharply, urgency lacing his tone. "Why?" Mia asked, holding the knife in a white-knuckled grip. "What do you know?" Gavin smirked, a cold, calculating grin. "Everything, sweetheart, but right now, it's more important that you know this. The rich man isn't the only one who needs to be silenced." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean silenced?" she whispered, the weight of his words wrapping around her throat like a noose. Gavin's eyes flickered, almost alive with something dark and dangerous. "You think his death was an accident? You think anyone in this room is innocent?" The air was solid now, the truth pressing down like a lead weight. Emma's heart raced, her world wobbly beneath her. What did you do?" she stammered, every instinct screaming to run. "That's the thing, Emma." He turned, seeming to draw strength from the chaos around him, his presence unsettling. "You're part of it now. You're the last piece of a very grim puzzle." "Shut up," Mia shouted, but her voice shook. "Why?" Gavin challenged with a scoff, stepping forward. "So you can pretend this is about revenge? This is bigger than you, little chef. This is about power and survival. And you with that knife," he looked at it, eyes glinting with mock amusement, "are about to get yourself killed." The room fell silent, their breaths held tightly, as the gravity of his threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Then, as if the night knew they needed an escape route, the lights flickered one last time and then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Emma stood frozen, heart racing, mind spinning. Shadows moved, footsteps echoed against the cold marble floor, and the high-pitched sound of breath caught in terrified throats enveloped them all. "What's happening?" someone cried out, a voice trembling with raw fear. Suddenly, a scream, a piercing sound that shattered the silence and sent every heart racing. "He's got a gun!" The chaos erupted, and Emma's instincts kicked in. She had no idea what was coming next, but this was more than a simple job. It was a setup, a game rigged against them all, shadowed by secrets nobody was ready to face. As figures darted in the dark, Emma felt a sense of clarity amidst the chaos. "We need to find a way out," she shouted, unsure of who would follow her, knowing the devil was mixing in with their truths. But then a figure stepped into the wane of light, and Emma gasped. It was Mia, blood-soaked knife still glimmering, but now it seemed almost like a weapon of allegiance held high against the storm, part defiance, part desperation. "No, you don't understand. We can't leave until we find the truth." What truth? Emma was lost, spinning in this maze of lies and shadows. Who could she trust? The question burned in her mind like a singeing flame. And with the piercing echoes of gunfire ringing in the darkness, Emma had one choice left: keep fighting for answers or drown in the shadows that threatened to consume them all. Emma stood frozen, her mind racing, heart pounding like a drum in a desperate march. Every eye was on Mia, and every whisper hung heavy with accusations. The air felt electric, a storm brewing with the promise of chaos. Just as the tension wound tighter, Alex spoke, his voice slicing through the thick silence. "Guys, we have to get out of here," he urged, glancing toward the door like a cornered animal. But there was something in his eyes, panic mixed with urgency, like he held the key to a locked door. Mia shouted back, "You don't understand. We can't leave until we figure this out. This is about survival." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, casting long shadows against the walls, and Emma's breath caught. Everything felt wrong. The shattering glass and the cries of panic echoing like ghosts. And then it happened. An unexpected sound, not from the outside, but right there in the room, a crack that splintered the air and sent everyone spinning. "Get down!" someone screamed, and confusion reigned. A metal door slammed open, and in stepped a man, tall, sharp features, and a confidence that cut through the panic. Emma's heart sank. She recognized him from the high-rises downtown. Gavin, the tycoon's business partner. The man who had been entwined in every whispered rumor about the rich man's darker dealings. "What the hell, Gavin?" Emma gasped, eyes wide.
"You can't be here." But he wasn't looking at her. His gaze swept the room, barely registering the knife Mia held.
The confusion around them, almost as if he owned every person in the room. "You need to leave, now," he ordered sharply, urgency lacing his tone.
"Why?" Mia asked, holding the knife in a white-knuckled grip.
"What do you know?" Gavin smirked, a cold, calculating grin.
"Everything, sweetheart.
But right now, it's more important that you know this. The rich man isn't the only one who needs to be silenced." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean silenced?" she whispered, the weight of his words wrapping around her throat like a noose. Gavin's eyes flickered, almost alive with something dark and dangerous. "You think his death was an accident? You think anyone in this room is innocent?" The air was solid now, the truth pressing down like a lead weight. Emma's heart raced, her world wobbly beneath her. What did you do?" she stammered, every instinct screaming to run. "That's the thing, Emma." He turned, seeming to draw strength from the chaos around him, his presence unsettling. "You're part of it now. You're the last piece of a very grim puzzle." "Shut up," Mia shouted, but her voice shook. "Why?" Gavin challenged with a scoff, stepping forward. "So you can pretend this is about revenge? This is bigger than you, little chef. This is about power and survival. And you with that knife," he looked at it, eyes glinting with mock amusement, "are about to get yourself killed." The room fell silent, their breaths held tightly as the gravity of his threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Then, as if the night knew they needed an escape route, the lights flickered one last time, and then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Emma stood frozen, heart racing, mind spinning. Shadows moved. Footsteps echoed against the cold marble floor, and the high-pitched sound of breath caught in terrified throats enveloped them all. Then a scream, a piercing sound that shattered the silence and sent every heart racing. "He's got a gun!" The chaos erupted, and Emma's instincts kicked in. She had no idea what was coming next, but this was more than a simple job. It was a setup, a game rigged against them all, shadowed by secrets nobody was ready to face. Just then, amidst the pandemonium, the scream erupted from the back of the room. "It's coming for us!" Everyone turned, eyes wide, breath held in anticipation. Emma's skin prickled with fear. This was the moment everything changed. In the suffocating darkness, Mia's knife glinted, and without warning, the blade soared through the air, spinning violently, a mesmerizing arc of glassy steel. "No!" Emma shouted, reaching out in vain. But it was too late. The knife struck true and went straight into Gavin's shoulder. His scream of shock and agony ripped through the air like a thunderclap. As he stumbled back, blood sprayed everywhere, mingling with the shadows. But then, amidst it all, Gavin's expression shifted. It turned from shock to something darker, more sinister. "I'm sorry, Emma," he gasped, struggling for breath. "I had no choice." At that moment, Emma's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" she whispered, each word laced with fear. Then, with a last surge of strength, Gavin pulled something from his pocket, a flash drive, and threw it at her. "The truth, it's all here. You need to find it before it finds you." And just like that, he collapsed to the floor, a haunting silence swallowing the room, leaving Emma standing at the edge of everything, breathless. What truth? Who was Gavin really? And what had he unleashed in the darkness? The night stretched into a spiral of shadows, and Emma knew this was just the beginning. The questions hung heavy in the air. How deep did the danger go? And who would survive to tell the tale? Emma stood frozen, her hands still trembling from everything that had just happened. Gavin lay on the floor, blood pooling around him, the truth slipping away with each gasped breath. The knife Mia held glimmered ominously, like in the spiraling chaos. Suddenly, the weight of the moment crushed down hard. Everyone was staring, shock painted on every face. "Emma!" Mia shouted, eyes wide with panic. "We need to figure this out." But before Emma could respond, the lights flickered again, and the laughter of a distant radio floated in, stark against the tension. It felt like a cruel joke. A heartbeat later, a loud bang echoed from the back of the penthouse, the sound of furniture being thrown. "Get away from me!" a frantic voice yelled, followed by a crash. The door to the kitchen flew open, and a figure tumbled through. Daniel, a fellow waiter, his clothes torn and face pale. "Help! He's coming!" Daniel gasped, eyes wild with fear as he stumbled toward them, his gaze darting nearly as wildly as his hands. "He's after me." "Who?" Emma shouted, her heart racing, adrenaline pumping through her veins. But before Daniel could reply, another voice rang out, darker and colder. "No one gets out, not now." A woman stepped forward from the shadows, the last person Emma ever expected to see. It was Clara, the restaurant's manager. In one hand, she clutched a cigarette, a smirk playing on her lips, despite the chaos surrounding her. "What a mess you've all made," she said, exhaling a cloud of smoke, calm in a storm of panic. "Clara?" Mia stared, disbelief mingling with rage. "What are you doing here?" With a wave of her hand, Clara casually flicked the ashes from her cigarette onto the floor, ignoring the blood that pooled there. "You're too late to play hero, dear. This is all part of a bigger plan, and you're all just pawns." "What?" Emma's voice trembled, caught in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "Gavin and I." Clara's words slithered out with a smooth confidence. "We had an agreement. It's all about eliminating the weak links in the chain and controlling the narrative." Emma's head spun. Panic spun wildly through the room, doubt, fear, and betrayal intermingled in the air. Before she could respond, Daniel took a desperate step forward, yelling, "You're in on this? You? Enough." Clara's voice cut through the chaos, sharp like glass. "You don't even know what's at stake, do you?" Emma was the target from the start. She's the reason Gavin was desperate, the reason he was murdered. The word hit Emma like a physical blow. Murdered? The reality twisted in her gut. She felt like she was standing in the eye of a storm. Everything familiar turned upside down by the wild winds of betrayal. Exactly, he was going to take you out, silence you before you could uncover the truth. Clara's smirk faded, but now it's too late. There's no going back from here. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the far side of the restaurant. The sound reverberated through the room, and more shadows slid into the flickering light. Two men wearing dark suits. Their faces were expressionless, eyes trained on the chaos. "Shut it down. Now," one barked, stepping aggressively forward. Mia raised her knife, but Emma saw the flicker of hesitation. "Stop! What do you want?" she shouted, recognizing the real danger now closing in. "Everything you know, or what's left of it," the man said, eyes sweeping over the terrified crowd. In that chilling moment, Emma realized she had been bait. But the bad news? There was nowhere to run anymore. The walls of power were closing in, and time was running out. Shadows loomed larger, and she shifted on her feet, dread settling in her stomach. "What do we do?" Daniel cried, panic pushing the words out of him. "Fight!" Emma shouted back, heart racing. But as she looked around the room, uncertainty clung to her. Which of them would rise to defend against the encroaching darkness? Then, in the midst of the chaos, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Mia, face tight with determination. "We stand together or fall alone. No one steps back now. This ends tonight." But before any more words flowed, the lights went out, drowning everything in darkness, plunging them into a void where trust and safety disintegrated. Emma felt a jolt of desperation as the doors slammed shut, locking them all in. The game had shifted again, and now the real fight was just beginning. What horrifying secrets lay buried in the depths, and who would survive to reveal them? The lights went out, choking everything in darkness. Emma's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might burst. Everyone was frozen, caught in a web of fear and uncertainty. She could barely catch her breath, awareness creeping in like a thief. How had things spiraled so out of control? "Someone turn the lights back on," Mia shouted, her voice trembling as she gripped the knife tighter. Shadows moved around them, breathing a life of their own. Emma felt the shift in the room, something darker lurking beneath the chaos. Then the flickering lights returned, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Emma blinked, her eyes adjusting, but what she saw made her stutter to a halt. Clara stood there, smiling, a sickly sweet grin that made Emma's skin crawl. But it wasn't Clara's smile that sent chills down Emma's spine. It was what Clara held in her other hand. A sleek, silvery gun glinting in the harsh light. Now, she sang, her tone deceptively sweet. "Let's not rush into anything we can't take back. You all wanted the truth, didn't you? Well, lucky you." She gestured to the chaos around them. "We're swimming in it." The room gasped collectively, some backing away. "Clara, what are you doing?" Daniel croaked, wide-eyed, stepping protectively in front of Emma. But Clara just laughed, as if they were sharing an inside joke, the kind where only she knew the punchline. "Oh, honey, this was never about the tycoon. He's just the player we sacrificed. You were all too busy fighting to see the real game." "What game?" Emma demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Because the truth was suffocating. Every word she could utter felt like it was laced with the poison of betrayal. The game of power. Clara's eyes sparkled, burning with a twisted excitement. "Gavin and I, we were just a team. And now it's time to play." "Play what?" Mia shouted, her voice cracking. "You're sick." "Am I?" Clara replied, tilting her head, still grinning. "What I really am is the last one standing. And you're all too far in to turn back. You don't get it yet, do you?" Before anyone could answer, the room resonated with the distant wail of sirens approaching fast. Panic sprang anew, the sound slithering underneath every heart, echoing against the walls like a warning. Suddenly, Clara's demeanor shifted, the smile dropping like the lights dimming around them. "We don't have much time. If they find out what we've done, I'd rather take my chances here." She leveled the gun at Emma. "The truth can't be allowed to breathe, not with you around." Emma's heart sank into her stomach. You killed him?" She felt her voice break. "Oh, my darling," Clara replied, a glint in her eyes that was both manic and triumphant. "You really don't understand how deep this goes. Gavin knew too much. You all do. All of you are liabilities now." But just then, the door crashed open, and a heavy figure burst in, silhouetted against the light. It was a police officer, shouting, "Everyone stay where you are, hands in the air." The sound threw the room into disarray. Clara's eyes widened, panic morphing her face. Was this it? Was this salvation? "Don't," she started, but Emma was already moving. "Get down," Emma yelled, ducking behind the nearest table. But as she reached for Daniel to pull him with her, everything exploded into chaos. Clara fired, the bullet ricocheted, and the room erupted into screams. "Emma!" Daniel cried, clutching her arm white-knuckled. But amid the violence and fear, something snapped in Emma. The revelation hit her like a train. The truth Clara spoke wasn't just about a murder or a plot. It was a reality that twisted their entire being. "You knew!" she shouted at Mia, voice filled with heartbreak. But Mia, pale and shaken, looked back at Emma, confusion clouding her gaze. "I swear I had no idea." The ground trembled beneath them as they raced for the exits, the gunfire ringing in their ears. But Emma, in that moment, knew she had to get to the bottom of this. Who was Clara really? And who had set this whole thing in motion? "Find the truth, Emma," Mia shouted. But as Clara laughed maniacally and chaos reigned, Emma felt the weight of the world close in. She had to uncover whatever lay hidden in the shadows before it was too late. Because one thing was clear. Everyone in this twisted plot was not who they seemed. As the darkness swirled around them, she felt the strings of fate tightening, grasping at her heart and soul. What was the truth? And how far would she have to go to find it before it consumed them all? The chaos unfolded like a twisted thriller. Clara brandished the gun, her eyes gleaming with madness. Emma's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a drum of war. She barely registered the fact that Daniel was still gripping her arm, fear radiating off him in waves. Sirens wailed in the distance, creeping closer like a restless predator. "Stay where you are," Clara shouted again, her voice sharp, like glass shattering. "You're all part of this, whether you like it or not." "Clara, this isn't going to end well," Mia yelled, her knife still poised, trembling in her hand. "End well?" Clara laughed, an unsettling sound that did nothing to ease the tension. "This is just the beginning. The truth is, we're all caught in a web, and I still have strings to pull." Suddenly, the door slammed open again, and in rushed a group of armed officers, guns drawn. "Hands up, now!" The scene erupted. People screamed, ducked, scrambled for cover. Emma felt a surge of adrenaline. Maybe this was rescue. Maybe justice was finally here. But then Clara shifted, aiming the firearm right at Emma. "Say goodbye," Clara sneered, ready to pull the trigger. But in that split second, something unexpected happened. The sound of thunder boomed outside, shaking the very walls, booming louder than anything she had ever heard. And then, without warning, the lights flickered again, then went out. A blaring crash followed, like something huge collapsing in the darkness. The floor shook beneath them, and a terrible roar cut through the chaos. An explosion? "Get down!" someone shouted. But Emma was already falling, instinctively pulling Daniel down with her, clutching him close, as the lights blinked erratically, barely revealing shadows against terror-stricken faces. Chaos spun around them. In the confusion, Clara's gun went off, but she wasn't aiming at Emma anymore. Bang! The sound exploded, deafening. Clara had shot at one of the officers storming in. A shot rang true, and Clara staggered back, confusion etched on her face as blood stained her shirt. Emma stared, pulse hammering. "No!" she cried. But the look of betrayal flashed across Clara's face, eyes wide, losing control. "Do you see now?" Clara gasped, falling against the wall, defeated. There's more than one player at this table. "What?" Emma choked, scrambling backward, panic tearing through her. But as the chaos unfolded further, something shocking cracked the very core of this twisted narrative. As the lights flickered back on, a figure emerged from the shadows behind Clara. A tall man, clad in a crisp suit, eyes cold as ice. Emma's heart sank into her stomach because she recognized him, Richard, the rich man's lawyer. But it wasn't just that. This was the man who had controlled everything from the start. "Richard? You?" Emma stammered, voice shaking, disbelief churning her insides. Clara looked up, laughter bubbling in her throat, but it was a twisted, hollow sound. Oh, Richard knew all along. He orchestrated this, the murders, the fears, the silence. He's the puppet master. "No," Emma shook her head, the revelation crashing over her like a wave. "You're lying!" But before Clara could respond, Richard raised a hand, silencing her. "This is bigger than you understand, Emma," he said, voice chillingly calm. "Your arrival here tonight was no coincidence. You were meant to find the truth." And just like that, everything shifted. Trust evaporated like steam. The room closed a deadly web, and she was too caught up to escape. "What's really happening?" she whispered, pleading. "Find out," Richard replied, stepping closer, a smirk tugging at his lips. "And you're already too deep to turn back now." Fear surged like fire through her veins. What had she walked into? The questions piled up as time slipped through her fingers. Did she even stand a chance against the truth, lurking in the shadows? The game had just begun, and Emma was left gasping for breath, desperate for answers as the twisted night stretched on. The tension hung thick in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Emma's heart raced as Richard's chilling words echoed around her. Every eye in the room was glued to the spectacle, a tableau of fear and betrayal. She shook her head, trying to process what he'd just said, but the chaos around her felt like a whirlwind, spinning faster and faster. "Emma!" Daniel's voice cut through her fog. He tugged on her arm, pulling her closer. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin, and for a second, the world outside faded away. But just as that small comfort took root in her chest, the chaos erupted again. "Don't move," one of the officers shouted. Gun trained on Clara. The entire room went silent, breath held in collective anxiety. And then, an explosion of sound crashed through the air. Behind Richard, the doors burst open, slamming against the wall, sending a shockwave of noise throughout the penthouse. All heads turned. Emma's heart dropped. It was Gavin. He stood there, bloodied but alive, leaning heavily against the doorframe. The sight sent shockwaves through her like an electric pulse. "I'm not dead yet," he snarled, gasping for breath. His eyes were wild, desperate, darting around the room searching for something. Or someone. "What the hell?" Mia blurted, disbelief written across her face. "Gavin, how are you?" Emma stammered, but he cut her off. "Shut up, I need to warn you. It was all a trap. I didn't go to meet Clara, she set me up." His voice shook, revealing a deep-seated panic that rippled through everyone. Clara's expression faltered for just a moment before the arrogance slipped back in. "You lie. Everyone's supposed to believe." "You're dead." Gavin pointed shakily at her, eyes burning. "No, I overheard her talking with Richard when I woke up. They planned everything. The murders, the power plays, even your arrival here." Emma's breath hitched. Was this true? Her mind reeled, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle that seemed too tangled to untangle. As Gavin pushed himself forward, suddenly he crumpled to the ground, clutching his side where blood still seeped through his shirt. "The truth is," he gulped, "they're trying to kill us all to cover this up." "Stop it," Clara screeched, her calm facade cracking. "You're ruining everything." "Emma!" Gavin shouted, eyes wide with urgency, blood still trickling from the corner of his lips. "You have to trust me." There's so much more, but before he could finish, a deafening crash erupted as the powerful strobe of light from the police cars outside cut through the room, illuminating dark corners. The cops stormed forward, raising their weapons. "Get on the ground," one officer shouted, and the room ignited into confusion. Clara began waving her gun, aiming it wildly, panic overtaking her. "You don't understand, none of you." The tension snapped. Gunshots rang out in the swirling chaos. Clara was shot in the leg, her scream piercing the pandemonium. The gun dropped from her hand, clanging to the floor, and she fell, blood pooling beneath her. What had just happened? In that heartbeat, everything shifted. Gavin, now in almost a delirious state, turned to Emma, a flicker of light in his eyes. "You're the key. The truth centers on you. You must find it." "What? Why me?" Emma was barely keeping up with the rapid-fire exchanges, her world spinning. In that crucial moment, Daniel stepped into the chaos. "Emma, I believe him. We need to get out of here." But before she could process, Richard lunged toward Clara, grabbing her and dragging her toward the back. "Come on," he hissed, urgency dripping from his voice. And that's where the world shattered again. With a hidden pocket knife, Clara stabbed Richard in the side, fury in her eyes. This was never about loyalty. "You were just the next fool." The room gasped. Emma's mind reeled. The truth was swirling around her. But could she even grasp it? Who was lying? Who was telling the truth? As shouts rang out and Clara crumpled out of the fray, the air felt electric. Everything built to a head, and Emma couldn't breathe. Was this really a trap? And what dark truth simmered underneath the surface, waiting to explode? The night stretched into a tangled web of betrayal and blood, leaving Emma gasping, stuck at the center of chaos. What was the secret that could change everything? And could they all make it out alive before the darkness closed in for good? The chaos in the penthouse reached a boiling point. The air crackled with fear and adrenaline as Clara lay on the ground, a pained expression etched on her face. Richard staggered back, hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his fingers. The police advanced, radios crackling with urgency, their shouts punctuating the panic. "Get down, surrender," one officer yelled, bringing the scene into sharp focus. Emma's heart raced, drowning in a sea of uncertainty. "Everyone, just calm down," Mia yelled, her voice brimming with desperation as she stood between Clara and the officers. "We can—" But Gavin, still gasping on the ground, wheezed, "It's too late, Mia. They have to understand. Clara and Richard, they've orchestrated everything. This isn't just a job gone wrong." His words hung heavily in the air, thick with revelation. "Emma, we have to go, now," Daniel shouted, pulling her toward the door, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from Clara's frantic eyes. "I didn't," Clara gasped. "You don't know the whole story. You think I wanted this to happen?" "Cut the melodrama," Gavin barked, blood splattering from his wound. "You're trying to control the narrative until the very end. But it's over. You and Richard underestimated us all." Emma's head spun as the tumult surged around her. The sirens wailed closer, and the bright flashes of lights painted an ominous backdrop. The officers moved in like shadows approaching a flame, ready to snuff out the chaos. "Stand back," one officer commanded, gun raised, and just like that, Clara's bravado crumbled to dust. "You think you can walk away from this?" she hissed, eyes darting between the officers and Gavin. "You think any of you will survive what's coming next? Watch her," an officer warned, shifting to cover her path. "Enough," Richard roared, trying to assert control despite his injury. "Everyone here is part of this lie. Emma, you hold the key. This is about you finding the truth." The world blurred around Emma. "Me? What truth?" she shouted, panic enveloping her. But the pieces were starting to align. Maybe she was the thread that connected this entire sinister plot. Then, with a sudden clarity, she shouted, "I'm not a part of this. I didn't ask for any of this." Her voice rang out, and in that moment, she felt a spark ignite within her, a slender thread of defiance unfurling. "That's exactly it," Gavin exclaimed, dipping his chin tightly to stop the bleeding. "You're the unintentional catalyst." Amid the commotion swirling, Emma felt a weight lift as realization struck. She turned slowly, staring into the eyes of every person around her. "Clara, Richard, this is your monster, but I won't be your pawn anymore." As the sirens crescendoed outside, Clara's lip curled back, a snarl of desperation mingled with fear. The theater of chaos was beginning to unravel. "Everyone, step back," an officer called, trying to separate the schism opening between Clara and the law. At that moment, something inside Emma shifted. No more running, no more hiding. "You may think you can control me," she said, voice steady, "but I'm not afraid." The light caught her eyes, revealing clarity amid the storm. "You're the ones drowning in this web of deceit." With one final push, she turned to Gavin and Daniel. "We need to expose this. We won't let Clara or Richard dictate the outcome anymore. Let's show them they can't silence the truth." That fierce determination spread through the group like wildfire. Gloria gave a nod of acknowledgement, and for the first time in a long while, Emma didn't feel alone. As the officers moved in, Clara's bravado crumbled. Richard struggled to maintain his confidence, but the light reflected in Emma's eyes showed them she was unyielding. The truth hung heavy in the air. Secrets would soon be laid bare. The night closed in, but before the police made their next move, Emma stepped forward, ready to carve her own path, standing on the precipice of her own fate. And in that final moment, she understood. The real battle lay ahead, but she would face it. The darkness had almost consumed them, but now the light was breaking through. Now, you have to subscribe right now. Don't wait even one more second to share this thrilling conclusion. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Let's see your theories. Flood the comments section with your thoughts on what's next for Emma and the others. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. This is the moment to stand together as a community. Your voice matters.